All right, you just saw the president gave a rousing speech in Nashville, Tennessee during a campaign push for Senate candidate, friend of the show, Marsha Blackburn, ahead of the midterm elections. We're going to play you some of the best moments of this rally throughout the show. But first, as the president's historic talks now with Kim Jong Un weigh in the balance. Now, despite what you are hearing from the left-wing media in this country, we have full reason to believe and be hopeful about the potential upcoming talks with North Korea. Tomorrow, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, he is set to meet with a high-ranking North Korean official in New York City, now the most senior official to visit the United States in nearly 2 decades. A massive development and only the latest sign that these historic talks might still take place in Singapore. They're scheduled to begin on June the 12th. Now, of course, last week, President Trump initially canceled the summit, sending a strongly worded letter to Kim Jong Un after the despot, the dictator, authorized a series of aggressive statements and failed to comply with some of the basic planning ahead of the talks. And as you can imagine, your corrupt media used that letter to trash the president, revealing what I have been saying so many times on this program. In order to have the president fail, that means the country has to fail. They're openly rooting for the president to fail, even if a more peaceful world is at stake for our children. Watch this pathetic, despicable display of Trump derangement syndrome.
As a friend of mine said in an email to me as I was on the train to New York, it sounds like a 13-year-old stream of consciousness in a breakup letter from overnight camp.
I get it. I'm going to break up with you before you break up with me, but by the way, call me.
Last week, a U.S. team in Singapore stood up on a date by North Korea, then ghosted by North Korea. They're not even responding to U.S. overtures. And today, of course, culminating in name-calling, a very awkward breakup letter. Oh, and by the way, the threat of using nuclear weapons.
As far as we know, he didn't consult with his own National Security Council. He dictates this bizarre, actually embarrassing letter.
This is a total breakup letter, and you realize, like, when your relationship starts souring, but you want to be the one to break up first, so you cut it off, but you're kind of like, maybe we can leave it open-ended. That's what this feels like.
Breakup letter. How many times have I said that everyone in the media, they're all sheep? And they got this little echo chamber, and they all quote themselves, and they all think they're so smart. All right, so while the media is quick to bash the president during every twist and turn in what is a negotiation, they need to learn the art of the deal with North Korea. Well, they're more than happy to ignore the president's historic diplomatic triumphs. Now, this includes Trump's success. So far, he has freed 17 Americans who were once detained or held hostage abroad. Now, the latest example came this weekend when the Trump administration secured the release of an American, Joshua Holt, and his wife after they spent nearly 2 years in a Venezuelan prison after being detained on several bogus, politically motivated charges. Take a look.
I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude for you guys, for everything that you've done, for the support of my wife through those 2 years. They were very, very, very difficult 2 years. Just so grateful for what you guys have done and for thinking about me and caring about me, just a normal person. So it really touches me, and thank you.
You've been very brave, actually. You've been incredibly brave. We saw what was happening inside of that prison. So you really have been very, very brave.
Thank God our fellow Americans are home. We're going to have more on the president's historic diplomatic gains around the world throughout the program tonight. First, we have more disturbing developments from Robert Mueller's illegitimate runaway witch hunt. This needs to go away. Last week, we first reported that the Justice Department, under the Obama administration, utilized at least one FBI informant to actively spy on multiple people that are associated with the Trump campaign. That includes Sam Clovis and Carter Page. They will be here tonight, along with George Papadopoulos, who recently pled guilty to lying to the FBI after pressure from the Office of the Special Counsel. Now, Sam Clovis recently told Byron York that the informant, FBI spy, used him in order to secure the meeting with Papadopoulos. Meanwhile, former Trump campaign aide Michael Caputo, he also, all three of these guys that were approached by the spy, will join us tonight. And, of course, Caputo is claiming that he was approached by multiple government informants during the 2016 election. Imagine for a second if there were spies in Hillary's campaign and she did do a deal for Russian propaganda. Take a look.
Let me tell you something that I know for a fact. this informant, this person that they tried to plan into the campaign and even into the administration, if you believe Axios. He's not the only person that came at the campaign. And the FBI is not the only Obama agency that came at the campaign. I know because they came at me. And I'm looking for clearance from my attorney to reveal this to the public. This is just the beginning.
Now, even former Assistant U.S. Attorney from the Southern District of New York, Andy McCarthy, he's backing up some of these claims in an article entitled "The Obama Administration's Hypocritical Pretext for Spying on the Trump Campaign." And in the article, McCarthy writes, quote, "The Obama administration decided to use its counterintelligence powers to spy on the Trump campaign using at least one covert informant, electronic monitoring of communications, and other intelligence gathering tactics. It ignored the norm against deploying such tactics against political opponents, not based on evidence of a Trump-Russia criminal conspiracy, but on speculation about the Trump campaign's Russia contacts and Russian sympathies." How many times have I said they're weaponizing the powerful tools of intelligence? Now, of course, this illicit, this unprecedented spying is now being used by Team Mueller to malign President Trump and everybody else around him. Hours ago, the president raised another pressing concern surrounding the ongoing Mueller witch hunt. He tweeted out, quote, "The 13 angry Democrats, plus people who worked 8 years for Obama, worked on the rigged Russian witch hunt, will be meddling with the midterm elections, especially now that Republicans, stay tough, are taking the lead in the polls. There was no collusion except by the Democrats." Now, the president raises an important concern, especially given the new revelations surrounding what the president is calling, rightly, Spygate. And, of course, the mainstream media, they are providing cover for Team Mueller as they actively are rooting for the special counsel investigation to find something, to find anything on this president. And as you can probably imagine, the media has been doing everything in its power to downplay what is the single biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in American politics and history. And by the way, you have an administration using the Justice Department to spy on an opposing political party during a presidential election, using bought and paid for, the other campaign, in this case Hillary Clinton, using her bought and paid for, funneled money through a law firm to Fusion GPS to hire a foreign national to get Russian lies that even he says in an interrogatory in Great Britain, maybe 50-50 at best, raw intelligence, to then get a warrant by lying to a FISA judge in an original application and 3 subsequent applications and not telling any of the judges that Hillary paid for it. Take a look at how the biased press is trying to brush aside this huge, massive national abuse of power corruption scandal.
I have an aversion to the use of the word spy, but let's just, for the sake of discussion, use that term, which conventionally means the use of tradecraft, using a formally trained case officer who would mask identity, who would attempt to recruit. So none of the classical attributes of spycraft, if I can use that term, were present here. This is the most benign form of information gathering. So to characterize it as a spy or Spygate is, of course, part of the narrative. And it's directly antithetical to what I actually said.
At various times, Trump has seemed attracted to conspiracy theories. There's obviously much remarked upon looseness with the truth and the lies, et cetera, et cetera. But the obsession with conspiracy theories and tall tales, as you say, Joe, dates back for a long time. I think the point right now, though, is that he's using them to a particular kind of political effect.
Heileman's a liberal hack, and Clapper is a known liar. We're going to have much more on the spying scandal and the complicit media's cover-up all throughout the show. Now, let's turn to a story that left many on the left totally embarrassed over the weekend. Remember this picture circulated online showing many illegal immigrants being detained in a chain-link cage? And, of course, many on the left became outraged, just outraged, quickly accusing the Trump administration of massive human rights violations. You have activist Sean King said that children of immigrants being held in cages like dogs. And Linda Sarsour, remember her? Oh, yeah, she chimed in, hashtagging, "We are our children." What Sarsour, King, and yes, your friends in the media failed to realize is, let's put those pictures back up. Those pictures were taken in 2014. Barack Hussein Obama was your president. And back then, they voiced zero concern about Obama's detention policies. Now, meanwhile, others on the left use these photos, of course, to attack President Trump. Whoopsie daisy. Take a look.
As the president correctly points out, the photo is from 2014. But that tweet highlights just how heated this whole discussion has become surrounding parents and children who cross the border.
There's some renewed scrutiny that some children are being separated from their parents at the border. It is a policy the Trump administration has defended.
President Trump tweeted about one of his favorite topics this morning, immigration. This, as his policies are facing major criticism, writing in part, quote, Dems must agree to wall and new border protection for good of country. Bipartisan bill, exclamation point. The president has been taking serious heat for his immigration policies recently, particularly his policy of separating families in detention.
There's actually a new policy from the administration right now to separate families. These are families who made the courageous decision, a hard decision, to leave behind everything that they have, their families, their communities, their belongings, out of fear to come to the United States.
Now, finally tonight, the reboot of the sitcom Roseanne has been canceled. This after Roseanne Barr made some really incendiary, pretty appalling comments on Twitter about the appearance of Obama aide Valerie Jarrett. Earlier today, she did apologize, but the show is now over. We're going to have more reaction later in the show.